My parents blew through the $55,000 college fund my grandparents lovingly saved for me, splurging it all on my sister's lavish Sweet 16 extravaganza. So, I struck back, and what they lost next left them utterly stunned, without a word to say. I'm Emma, a 20-year-old woman, and I've been wrestling with a pain that's festered for years, the glaring favoritism that defines my family. My parents treat my younger sister, Lily, an 18-year-old, like she's the center of the galaxy, while I'm left scraping for scraps of their attention. This isn't just a gut feeling, it's a cold, hard fact, and I've got the evidence to prove it. Lily has always been the golden child, the one who gets her every wish granted without a second thought. If she wanted the latest smartphone, it was in her hands within days. But when I needed a new phone because mine was practically a brick, it was like I'd asked for a private jet. I had to save up and buy my own. This kind of treatment has been my reality for as long as I can remember. Picture this. Back in high school, I poured my heart and soul into an art project for a local competition. Art is my refuge, my passion, and my dream career. Winning first place was a massive deal for me, a moment of pride I wanted to share. I told my parents about the awards ceremony weeks in advance, hoping they'd show up to cheer me on. But when the day came, they bailed, claiming they had errands to run. Errands? Are you kidding me? I went alone, and a friend's mom kindly snapped photos of me holding my trophy because I wanted to capture the memory. My parents didn't even ask to see the pictures afterward. Fast forward a few months, and Lily entered a dance competition. She didn't even win. She got second place. But my parents, they went all out, showering her with flowers, taking her to a fancy dinner, and gushing about how proud they were, like she'd just won a Nobel Prize. I sat there that night, watching them fawn over her, wondering why my art award wasn't worth the same celebration. It wasn't jealousy. It was this deep, aching feeling of being invisible, like I didn't even exist in their eyes. Lily gets a free pass for everything. If she breaks a rule or screws up, my parents just shrug it off, saying, "She's young," or "She's figuring things out." But if I make the tiniest mistake, I get a full-on lecture about being the older sister and setting a better example. One time, Lily, without a license, backed into the mailbox with Dad's car. My parents laughed it off, joking, "Well, she didn't total it." A week later, I forgot to take the trash out on time, and Mom launched into a 20-minute sermon about how I need to pull my weight around the house. The double standard is infuriating. I've been doing my own laundry, cooking, and cleaning since I was 12. Lily? She leaves her clothes all over the floor, expecting me to pick them up, and my parents let her. Mom will say, "Just help her, Emma. You're so responsible, and she's still learning." I don't expect us to be treated exactly the same. We're different people. But the favoritism is so blatant, they don't even try to hide it. It's always Lily this, Lily that, and I'm just supposed to smile and take it. The only people who ever saw how unfair this was were my grandparents. Grandpa, in particular, was my biggest cheerleader. He didn't know much about art or architecture, my career goal, but he believed in me with all his heart. He'd sit with me while I sketched, saying, "One day, your buildings will be on postcards, kiddo." When I was 15, he told me he'd started a college fund for me, knowing my parents wouldn't prioritize my education. That moment meant the world. It was the first time I felt truly seen. My parents barely acknowledged the fund, probably thinking Grandpa was just being overly generous. Lily, though, threw a tantrum, sobbing, "Why doesn't Grandpa love me as much as Emma?" My parents rushed to console her, assuring her she was just as special, while I stood there feeling like even this one thing couldn't be mine without turning into a Lily drama. It was exhausting. I've always been the quiet one in the family, avoiding conflict and trying not to let the favoritism get to me. but it's tough when it's everywhere. In high school, I started spending more time at my grandparents' house. It was the only place I could breathe. Grandpa would brainstorm sketch ideas with me, and Grandma always had warm cookies waiting when I arrived. At home, though, nothing I did was ever enough. My parents would go on and on about Lily's talent and bright future, but when I talked about my dream of becoming an architect, they'd barely nod. Once, I showed Mom a sketch I was really proud of, and she glanced at it, mumbling, "That's nice." Meanwhile, Lily's random TikTok dance videos got full-blown applause. It hurts to feel like you're second place in your own family. I don't even want to be the favorite. I just want to feel like I matter too. The breaking point came when I was 16, and the favoritism became impossible to ignore. One day, Mom got a credit card bill that was through the roof, hundreds of dollars for clothes, makeup, and concert tickets. She lost it, called me downstairs, and waved the bill in my face, accusing me of spending her money. I was floored. First, I didn't even have access to her card. Second, I'd never spend her money anyway. I tried explaining, but she wasn't having it, snapping, "Don't lie to me. I raised you better than this." I pointed out that Lily had been getting packages delivered to the house almost daily, even offering to show Mom her social media posts flaunting new outfits. But Mom shut me down. "Stop trying to blame your sister. You're the older one. Take responsibility." I was livid. Lily, of course, was chilling in her room, probably watching Netflix, completely unbothered. When Dad got home, I hoped he'd hear me out, but he jumped on Mom's bandwagon, yelling about how I was ungrateful and how they worked so hard to provide for me. I'd had enough. Years of keeping my head down boiled over, and I snapped, yelling that I wouldn't take the blame for something I didn't do. I grabbed Lily's laptop, pulled up her order history, and showed them the proof. And do you know what Mom said? "That's private. How dare you invade your sister's privacy?" I was begging them to see the truth, and they were more worried about Lily's privacy than the fact that she'd racked up hundreds of dollars on their card. That night was the worst fight we'd ever had. Dad kept yelling about how I was disrespectful and dishonest. Mom was crying, saying she didn't know what she'd done wrong to raise such an ungrateful daughter. Lily finally came downstairs, acting all innocent, saying, "I don't know why you're blaming me. I don't even use Mom's card." At that point, I realized there was no winning. They'd already decided I was the bad guy, and nothing I said would change their minds. I grabbed my phone and called my grandparents. When Grandpa picked up, I broke down, spilling everything. The credit card bill, the favoritism, how I was always the one getting blamed. He didn't say much at first, but I could tell he was furious. He just said, "Pack a bag. I'll be there in the morning." The next day, Grandpa showed up early. He didn't even come inside. He stood on the porch and told my parents, "She's coming with me. She deserves better than this." Mom tried to argue, saying it was just a misunderstanding and that I was being dramatic. Dad said I needed to stay and work things out as a family, but Grandpa wasn't having it. He looked Dad dead in the eye and said, "If you cared about working things out, you wouldn't treat her like a scapegoat." I'll never forget the look on Mom's face when I walked out the door with my suitcase. She looked shocked, like she couldn't believe I was actually leaving. Living with my grandparents was like stepping into a different world. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. They didn't treat me like an afterthought or a punching bag. They actually cared about me. Their house felt like home in a way my parents' house never did. I could relax without worrying about what Lily was up to or how my parents were going to pin something on me. And the best part? They supported my dreams. Grandpa kept reminding me that the college fund he started was there for me, no matter what. He'd say, "You're going to do big things, kiddo. Don't let anyone hold you back." It wasn't always easy, though. My parents would call every now and then, trying to guilt-trip me into coming back. Mom would cry about how much she missed me, and Dad would say I was being immature for running away. I didn't care. I wasn't going back. Lily, of course, acted like nothing had changed. She'd text me sometimes, asking for advice about random stuff, or sending me TikToks she thought were funny, like she didn't even realize how much damage she'd caused. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in a place where I could focus on myself and my goals. But life has a way of turning everything upside down. During my senior year of high school, my grandparents passed away within months of each other. First Grandpa, then Grandma. Losing them shattered me. They were my safe haven, the only ones who treated me like I mattered. In the middle of all the grief, I had to handle the responsibilities they left behind. They were organized people, and everything in their will was laid out clearly. They left me their house, a modest little place, but full of love and memories. And then there was the college fund Grandpa had been saving for me. That fund was his pride and joy. He'd been putting money into it for years. When I opened the envelope with the account details, I saw the number, $55,000. It was enough to give me the head start I needed. At first, I didn't even want to touch the money. Thanks to a scholarship, my first year of college tuition was covered, and I handled my living expenses by working part-time jobs. I lived alone in the house my grandparents left me, juggling classes and work. It was a lot, but I managed. But when my second year of college rolled around, my scholarship ended, and I knew I'd have to use some of the fund. It wasn't an easy decision. Part of me felt like spending that money meant letting go of Grandpa somehow, but I reminded myself that this was exactly why he'd worked so hard to save it. I remember logging into the account late one night. I had my tuition bill in front of me, doing the math in my head, figuring out how much I'd need to transfer. But when I saw the balance, my heart stopped. It wasn't $55,000 anymore. It was $5,000. At first, I thought I'd made a mistake. Maybe I had the wrong account. Maybe I typed something wrong. I logged out and back in, but the number didn't change. I stared at the screen, a mix of confusion and panic washing over me. Where did the money go? The next morning, I went to the bank to figure it out. That's when the truth started to unravel. The account had been drained over the past couple of years through dozens of withdrawals. I could barely make sense of it until I saw the names attached to the transactions, my parents. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was impossible to ignore the evidence. They were listed as secondary beneficiaries on the account, a decision Grandpa must have made out of trust or convenience. And now they'd taken everything. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, trying to process what I'd learned. My grandparents had worked so hard to give me a shot at a better future, and my parents had taken it all. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just give up. Later that evening, I called Mom. I couldn't let this slide without an explanation. I kept my voice calm, even though I was shaking. Hey, I was checking Grandpa's college fund, and most of the money is gone. Do you know what happened to it? There was a long pause before she answered, and when she finally spoke, her tone was defensive. What do you mean it's gone? Are you sure you're looking at the right account? I told her I'd already been to the bank and knew she and Dad had withdrawn the money. That's when she dropped the act and admitted what they'd done. We used it for Lily's Sweet 16, she said, like it was no big deal. I was stunned. You spent $50,000 on a birthday party? It wasn't just the party, she said, like that was supposed to make it better. There were a lot of expenses, the venue, the catering, the decorations. Plus, we got her a car. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You spent my college money on Lily's birthday party and a car? But that wasn't the worst part. Apparently, they'd also used the money to take Lily on a family trip to Europe. I say family But guess who wasn't invited? That's right, me. They didn't even tell me they were going. Mom sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. You didn't need that money anymore. You had that scholarship and the house, remember? I tried to explain that the scholarship only covered my first year and didn't include living expenses, but she just shrugged it off. A sweet 16 only happens once, she said. We wanted to make it special for her. I was so angry I hung up the phone. That night, I sat in the living room of the house my grandparents had left me, surrounded by their photos and the things they'd passed down. It felt like a betrayal of everything they'd worked for. Part of me wanted to let it go, just to keep the peace, but another part couldn't stop thinking about Grandpa and how proud he was of that fund. I don't know what I'll do yet, but I do know this. I'm not letting them take away my future. I tried reasoning with them first. I called a family meeting at their house and laid everything out again. I told them the fund wasn't theirs to spend, that it was meant for my education, and that they needed to pay it back. You know what they did? They laughed. Mom literally laughed in my face and said I was being so dramatic about it. We didn't spend it on nonsense, she said, as if a giant party, a car, and a European vacation weren't the definition of nonsense. Then she hit me with, "Why can't you just be happy for your sister? This was a once-in-a-lifetime event for her." Dad chimed in with his usual guilt trip routine, saying things like, "You know we'd help you out if you really needed it," and "We're family. You shouldn't be so focused on money." That was the final straw for me. I realized they weren't going to take me seriously unless I made them. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a lawyer. It wasn't an easy decision. I spent days going back and forth, wondering if I was blowing things out of proportion or if I'd just make things worse. But every time I hesitated, I remembered Mom laughing at me and calling me selfish for wanting what was mine. That was all the motivation I needed. When my parents got served with the paperwork, they completely lost it. Mom called me within hours, screaming about how I was tearing the family apart. She kept saying, "You're going to ruin us. Do you know how this makes us look?" I told her I didn't care how it made them look. They should have thought about that before stealing $50,000. Her response? It wasn't stealing. It was for the family. I couldn't even argue with her. What was the point? She wasn't going to admit she was wrong. So, I just told her to talk to my lawyer and hung up. The fallout was immediate. My extended family found out because, of course, Mom couldn't keep quiet about it. Suddenly, I was public enemy number one. My aunt called to lecture me about family loyalty and how suing my own parents was disgraceful. My uncle chimed in, telling me I needed to drop the lawsuit and think about what I was doing to Mom. It was like no one cared about what my parents had done to me. The entire focus was on how I was making them feel. I didn't even respond. What was the point? Dad wasn't much better. He tried the guilt angle, saying I was being too harsh and that suing wasn't the right way to handle things. He kept saying, "We're family. We can work this out." But when I asked him how they planned to pay me back, he dodged the question. That's when I knew I'd made the right call. They weren't going to pay me back unless they were forced to. The hardest part has been how lonely this all feels. Most of my family has taken my parents' side, saying I'm overreacting or being ungrateful. It's like they're completely ignoring the fact that my parents stole money meant for my education and blew it on Lily. But a piece of advice stuck with me. If standing up for yourself makes people mad, those people never respected you in the first place. That's been my mantra through all of this. This situation has made me realize just how toxic my family dynamic really is. My parents raised Lily to believe she deserves everything, and they raised me to accept nothing. Now that I'm pushing back, they don't know how to handle it. Mom even threatened to disown me if I didn't drop the lawsuit. She called me crying, saying things like, Do you really want to destroy our relationship over money? I told her it wasn't just about money. It was about trust, respect, and the fact that what they did was wrong. She hung up on me. Honestly, her threat didn't scare me. I've been on the sidelines of this family for so long that the idea of being disowned doesn't mean much. It's not like they've ever really been there for me. The legal battle was no joke. Months of back and forth, tons of paperwork, and more family drama than I ever thought possible. It was exhausting. Every time I thought we were making progress, they'd throw another excuse at us. My lawyer would send them a letter, and they'd wait until the last possible second to respond, hoping I'd back down. They were dragging it out on purpose, probably thinking I'd eventually give up. But if they thought I was going to roll over, they didn't know me at all. After months of this nonsense, they finally realized I wasn't bluffing. The pressure must have gotten to them because Dad called me one night and said, "All right, we're ready to talk about a solution." Translation: they knew they were about to lose and wanted to cut their losses. Here's where things got really interesting. My parents didn't have the full amount, of course, so they had to scramble to come up with the money. Dad ended up selling Lily's car, the one they'd bought with my college fund, and a few other valuables to scrape together most of what they owed me. When I heard about the car being sold, I won't lie, I felt a little vindicated. That car was the ultimate symbol of their favoritism, and watching it get taken away felt like some kind of cosmic justice. But Lily, oh, she did not take it well. She started blowing up my phone with long, hateful texts, calling me the worst sister ever, and saying all of this was because I was jealous of her. She kept calling me petty and selfish, saying things like, "You're ruining the family over some stupid money." I didn't respond to any of it. Honestly, what was the point? She's been coddled her entire life, and now that she was facing even a fraction of the consequences, she couldn't handle it. If she thought her texts were going to make me feel bad or change my mind, she was dead wrong. Meanwhile, Mom was doing her best to play both sides. She'd call me one day, crying and apologizing, and the next day she'd send me passive-aggressive texts about how I was destroying our family bond. She even tried to pull the classic, "You're going to regret this when we're gone," as if her emotional manipulation tactics were going to work after all this. The truth is, by this point, I didn't care what they thought. This wasn't about making them feel bad. It was about standing up for myself. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached an agreement. They sold enough stuff to repay most of the money, and we worked out a plan for them to pay back the rest over time. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. Watching them finally take responsibility, kicking and screaming the whole way, was so worth it. Dad looked like he wanted to be anywhere else when he handed over the first payment, and Mom couldn't even make eye contact. They didn't apologize or admit they were wrong, but honestly, I didn't need them to. Seeing their entitled attitudes crumble was apology enough. As for Lily, well, let's just say she's still throwing her tantrums. She's been telling everyone who'll listen that I ruined her life by getting her car taken away. She even posted this cryptic Instagram story about how families should support each other, not tear each other down. The audacity, right? I didn't bother responding directly, but I did laugh a little when one of our mutual friends messaged me, saying, "Wow, Lily's really showing her true colors, huh?" People are starting to see through her nonsense, and honestly, that's been the cherry on top of this whole thing. Now that the legal stuff is mostly behind me, I've been focusing on what really matters: my future. I'm still working on my architecture degree, and things are finally starting to fall into place. I've got a couple of internships lined up, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm on solid ground. Once the money was returned, I took a step back and really thought about what I wanted. I realized I was done. Done being part of a family that never made me feel like I belonged. So, I made the decision to cut ties with my parents and Lily. They'd shown me time and time again that I was nothing more than a supporting character in their little drama. Lily, of course, took this as yet another personal attack. She sent me this long, self-pitying text about how I was abandoning the family and trying to punish her for being loved. I didn't respond. Here's where it gets a little juicy, though. Remember how my parents drained their savings to pay me back? Well, Lily is starting college this year, and for the first time in her life, my parents can't swoop in and save the day. She'd been expecting the usual royal treatment, fully paid tuition, new gadgets, maybe even a car to take to campus. But nope, between paying me back and their own bad financial decisions, they didn't have the money to help her. And let me tell you, the fallout has been glorious. Lily had to get a job, an actual job. She works part-time at a coffee shop now, and from what I've heard, she's miserable. She's not used to having to earn anything, and apparently, the idea of making lattes and dealing with customers is beneath her. She's been complaining to anyone who'll listen about how unfair it is that she has to work while I'm living comfortably in the house my grandparents left me. The irony of it all. In her world, everything revolves around her, and now that the universe isn't bending to her will, she's falling apart. As for my parents, they're stuck trying to pick up the pieces. Mom called me a few weeks ago, crying about how hard things have been. She said Lily was struggling and asked if I could help her out financially, just until things got back to normal. I laughed, actually laughed. I told her no, and then reminded her that they'd made their choices. They spent my college fund on Lily's Sweet 16, and now they were dealing with the consequences. Mom got all defensive and said, "We were just trying to do what was best for the family." I told her, "Well, now I'm doing what's best for me," and hung up. Honestly, I don't feel bad about it. I've been trying to figure out my next steps, and for the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. It's been a rough road, but knowing I'm not letting them take away my future has made it all worth it.
Thank you for listening. Please share your thoughts, like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more.